So, lovely good morning to all the participants present here. And I'm glad that you people have come up with the initiative of presenting your paper. So, I welcome you all for this two-day international conference on language, literature, and linguistics. So, for today's paper presentation, we have Dr. B. Thirukumaran. He will be speaking on F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Icon of American Fiction. You can begin.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to all. I'm Dr. B. Thirukumaran, Associate Professor of English. I'm working in Srimati NP Savitrama Degree College for Women, Chittoor, Andhra Pradesh. Ma'am, there is some sort of disturbance. There is some sort of disturbance. Ma'am, Pankaj,
Yeah. Some voices are coming up. Divya, ma'am. Divya, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Yeah, some voices are interrupting.
Voice interrupt thousand seconds. Yes, that's also. Yeah, just a minute, ma'am. Just a minute. Hold a second.
Sure.
Okay, ma'am. Is it right now?
Yeah, fine. You can begin.
Okay, ma'am. Well, my abstract of the paper is F. Scott Fitzgerald. Just wait a minute. Ma'am, again, there was some sort of interruptions, ma'am.
Yeah. Please, I request everyone to mute your mics.
I was instructed to change this session. In this session, we have 4 paper presenters.
I request everyone to please mute your mics.
Third one is Kasturi Sinha, and fourth one is Elizabeth Bisu. All are present?
Maran sir, it's on your end only because everybody's mic is on mute.
Yeah. I've just checked up. See some at your back. Thirukumaran sir, at your back, some voices are coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
Please check.
Voices are coming. Lot of interruptions.
Please check from your side at the back.
Ma'am? Just a minute, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
He is not available, sir. My name is Raj, and I present sir. He is busy in Still voices are coming, ma'am.
So you're absolutely audible. I think you should go ahead.
Shall I continue, ma'am?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this is my abstract of Scott Fitzgerald, and the paper title is F. Scott Fitzgerald, the Icon of American Fiction. F. Scott Fitzgerald, the unavoidable icon of the American fiction, who fondly called the spokesman of America's roaring 20s. The most recognized figure in the American fictional, literary, and cultural history of the 20th century, whose life story, whose life story excited the fascination of the public, especially the American youth. His life is inextricably bound up with the works, despite the unforgivable things he occasionally committed and was caught. To understand the works of Fitzgerald as a successful writer, first of all, one should understand his biographical sketches, because his life and his works were intermingled and inseparable. Of course, he wrote 5 novels and some sort of short stories and also some sort of prose works. And my area of study is only novels. He wrote 5 novels. Of the 5 novels, the first one is The Great Gatsby. And we can say that this is the most successful work of the entire career of Fitzgerald. And the next one is Tender is Night. Of all the 5 novels Fitzgerald wrote, these 2 novels are almost, we can say, the landmark in the career of Fitzgerald. The other novels are This Side of Paradise, The Beautiful and Damned, and The Lost Tycoon. Regarding this Lost Tycoon, this is some critics say that this is inconclusive, because while writing this Lost novel, he had some attack, and of course the work was incomplete. But some critics say that no, it was already written, but it was not printed. It was not in print at the time. After posthumously, the novel was published, as some critics say. His main themes of all the novels, whatever the work from his pen, that may be a short story or some sort of criticism or the other, or some sort of biographical sketches. Actually, the main themes in the works of Scott Fitzgerald, the first one, the theme of youth, and also success and money. And these 3 things are major themes in the almost in all the works of Scott Fitzgerald. These 3 themes stem from attitudes founded on personal experiences when romantically removed to a heightened world. Fitzgerald's claim to a distinguished place in the modern American fiction world. Of course, coming to the novels, the first novel, Tender is the Night. This is, of course, this was the first full-fledged novel written by Fitzgerald. Of course, this novel, after this novel, he wrote The Great Gatsby, and even the novel was filmed. At the time, this Great Gatsby was one of the instant success stories of Scott Fitzgerald. And some critics say that the hero, J. Gatsby, almost represents the character of the writer himself, the novelist himself, Scott Fitzgerald. And the remaining novels, the 3 novels, This Side of Paradise and The Beautiful and Damned, and of course, The Lost Tycoon, these novels are not so successful. But in spite of these things, he established himself as one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century of American fictional world. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? I'm ready to answer the queries, if at all any. Because I haven't prepared the full paper, just because we thought of preparing, but after the people organizers informed us to prepare that later on. So that's the reason. So because of our busy schedule, it's not possible for us to do that. This is only the abstract of my full paper.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you, Dr. Thirukumaran.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank
We'll proceed. Yeah. We'll
Thank-
proceed for the next participant, MG Nirmala and Dr. D. Sankari. The topic is internal conflict and metamorphosis of Mukundan in Anita Nayar's The Better Men. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Good,
you can
am I-
begin.
yes. Good morning, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. You can begin. Yeah.
Good morning, respected chairperson and all the members present in this forum. I am Nirmala, assistant professor in Itiraj College for Women, Chennai. And my topic is the internal conflict and metamorphosis of Mugundan in Anita Nayar's Better Man. In this hostile modern era, the failure of interconnectedness leads to immense sense of isolation and anxiety, aggression, and addiction, and which results in internal conflict, and it hampers the harmonious life of the individual and others in society. So I have focused my paper only on the internal conflict of a character in the fiction Anita Nayar's. And it is a psychological approach. It's a psychoanalytical study dealing with the internal conflict of the protagonist. And so, literature and psychology have a very strong correlation, as literature is a manifestation of the psychological assumption of its creator, and the literature is comprehended only through the psychological assumption of its interpreters. So, internal conflict. So, what do I mean by internal conflict? The conflict which an individual experiences within himself in an imbalanced or confused state of mind, entangled with multiple perspectives or inclination. And basically, Levin states there are three types of conflicts, that is approach conflicts, avoidance conflicts, and approach avoidance conflict. The approach conflict, it has a very positive balance, because it is a conflict that occurs between two positive things. That is, you have two things to choose, which which at the same time both are desirable. And avoidance conflict, which has a very negative impact, because a person is forced to choose on something, uh, a person is choose on two negative things, or which is undesirable. And when we come to approach avoidance conflict, so there the person has to overcome his desire and obliged by the constraints of the society. So I have taken this last one, the approach avoidance conflict, because here the character Mukundan, okay, so he has to overcome the pressures of the society and prove himself. So now going to the paper. So Anita Nayar's Better Man is a Anita Nayar's debut novel Better Man is a it's known for its sharp characterization, great insight, and solidarity and humor, and it raises the psychological tensions which was prevalent in Mukundan, a long repressed man, a retired government employee who returns to his native village, Kaikurisi, to search his identity, and he emerges as a better man in his late 50s. And the novel begins with the traumatic experiences in his childhood days, and it focuses on the rivalry between the father and the son, which left indelible mark in his mind. And then his deep-rooted anxieties and fear takes the form of hallucination when he stays in his ancestral home after his retirement. And the Basi, a painter and he's a healer by occasion, comes to his rescue, and he heals his internal conflict, and he earns for recognition and adulation. And finally, only at the end, he realizes that it is only his self-seek. It's only through Basi's healing. Basi heals him by taking him to a very gloomy forest, making him realize uh, the fear, realize the fear, anxiety, which is not needed, and he overcomes the fear through the guidance of Basi, and he recognizes the true love and valuable friendship of Basi. And So that's a finally his internal conflicts and the transgression process is effective as Sabati heals him, and Mukundan's betterment occurs when he decided to choose, which we choose for the sake of his self harmony and not for his selfish needs. And this internal conflict is of Mukundan is resolved when the individual can balance his desire and the societal values for his well-beings. And so Danika Nair vividly describes the traumatic experiences of the characters and the transformation of the characters to lead an independent life which is anchored in respect and dignity in the society. So it is just of the full paper, ma'am. I have elaborated the story in the full paper. Just I have given an outline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, any questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience? Fine. Yeah, thank you, Nirmala.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So now the next participant is R. Joymala.
Yes, ma'am.
You're ready? Yeah. The title is Dismantling the Colonial Situation in Vikas Swarup's The Accidental Apprentice. You can begin,
Yes,
Joymala.
yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And good morning, everyone who present here. And I'm Mrs. R. Jo Amala, the part-time research scholar, Mother Teresa Women's University, Kodaikanal. And also, I'm working as a guest lecturer in MV Muthiah Government Arts College, Dindigul, Tamil Nadu. And I'm here to present my paper titled Dismantling the Colonial Situation in Vikas Swarup's The Accidental Apprentice. The paper speaks about the novel The Accidental Apprentice, which exposes the post colonial life in both village and city. The novel portrays the life of Sapna Sinha, a middle class sales girl in an electronic shop at Delhi. So during colonization, Indians are puppets in the hands of colonizers. So they erased the reality in India and left in an unreal world. So as Franz Fanon says, one of the renowned post-colonial writers has written in his famous book, The Wretched of the Earth, that colonialism as a total project which rules every aspect of colonized people and their reality. The reality is completely shattered in the life of Indians in education, career, food, lifestyle, and so on. Everything is imposed in the name of development. And after decolonization, colonial impact can be seen in the colonized intellectuals. As the protagonist, Sapna Sinha is portrayed as a victim in the novel The Accidental Apprentice. And the Vinay Acharya, a multimillionaire as well as the owner of a corporate company, chooses Sapna to be a CEO of his ABC group of companies without her knowledge. At first, she denies his proposal as it is a prank TV show, and later she understands the situation of Acharya and accepts. It is the condition of India too, in the hands of colonized intellectuals, that they can enforce or lay or invest anything in anywhere to anybody. So colonizers forced people to follow their ideology in all ways to make money. So in India, deprived classes are not allowed to commit in their ideology. So in the novel, Sapna is constructed to be a CEO of ABC group of companies, which is planned by Acharya and forces her to sign the contract and makes her to face the real life situations in the name of seven tests. So the main person, that is the Vinay Mohan Acharya, is the colonized intellectual who occupies the mind of Sapna in this novel. According to Franz Fanon too, that real decolonization is nothing but decolonizing the mind of the native people. He further says that decolonize a nation is to create new men and dismantle the colonial situations. In this novel too, Swarup uses Sapna Sinha as a colonized individual in the decolonized society. As Vinay Acharya frames all the seven tests, the first test highlights the corruption in police department. Sapna saves a girl from an unwilling marriage in Kahab. She bravely spotlights the corrupted policeman in front of the society. In the second test, Sapna shatters the ego of the Bollywood star Priya Kapoor, who complains against Sapna for stolen her diamond ring. This exposes the anger of the subaltern Indian. In the third test, Sapna saves the labored children from the lock factory along with the American social worker Lauren. So, bribery plays a vital role to file an RIT application against the child labor. And in the fourth test, exposes the unethical Rauji, a famous musician who tries to abuse the Sapna's sister Neha, a fascinating young girl who moves to Mumbai to crack a singing contest. She, that is Sapna, unveils the real face of lecherous Ravji, who enacts as a blind to entice the charming girls. So Vikas registers the weakness and greed of young Indians for an overnight fame. So the reality shows crown the success but spits the losers. It creates the false image about life. And in the fifth test, Nirmala Ben, a neighbor of Sapna, fast against corruption in Jandar Mandar at Delhi. It is a place for the people of Delhi to show their extreme protest. Nirmala Ben resembles Anna Hazare, who started his hunger strike against Indian government on 5th April 2011. Sapna joins along with Nirmala Ben and she pays bribe for the policeman to continue the fast. In order to get support of the public, Sapna sent a fake Salim Ilyasi MMS, a Bollywood star, like supporting her fasting, which goes viral and shares through blogs, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. It is a fate of India that to fight against corruption using corruption to popularize Nirmala Ben. There is a need of a popular movie star too. So this news reached people of Delhi, which is broadcast by Sunlight TV channel journalist Shalini Grover. In overnight, Ben becomes famous and grabs the attention of the people and also the government. In the sixth test, Vikas traces the mere corporatization in medical field too. Sapna's mother was affected by renal disease and is in need of the kidney transplantation. In this situation, Sapna was forced to buy a kidney from a black market. Sapna encounters a feeble woman in the hospital as a kidney donor for her mother, who is selling for only 10,000 rupees. This illegal act is run by MLAs and MPs in Delhi. So Sapna decides to donate her kidney, and her mighty decision gives a clean conscience. Sapna passes in all six tests that is was made by Vinay Mohan Acharya, and she expects the seventh test would be hard and life shaking. Before the seventh test, Sapna's sister Neha becomes a victim of acid attack and Acharya also murdered by someone. So Sapna was accused for the murder and she escapes from the police custody to find the murderer. As novel goes in this way, I want to quote again Franz Fanon lines that is decolonization and power structures in this book, The Rupture of the Earth. He explains that colonizers want to be superior to colonized intellectuals, even after the decolonization of the particular nation. So, these colonialist virtues stresses the colonized intellectuals about Western supremacy to withstand the Western values even after decolonization. In this view, the novel The Accidental Apprentice is analyzed. Bribing policeman in the novel, Dr. Nath, who have an illegal kidney transplantation, and the actress Priya Kapoor, and another character Karan, and also the samples of the colonized intellectuals. Finally, Sapna escapes from the trap of police and finds Karan as a murderer of Vinay Acharya. So Sapna Sinha stands as a model of decolonization by rejecting CEO position given to her at the end of the novel. Sapna says that she rarely believes in lotteries and she believes herself. At the end of the novel, Sapna gets what she deserves. And Sapna dismantles the colonial situation who wants to fly in her wings. She decolonizes her mind in all situations and reacts in all situations as a human being. As I end this paper, that the history is colonizers colonized people. But in contemporary India, it is as capitalism versus socialism. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Joymala.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move forward. Any questions from the audience? Any questions? Fine, we'll move forward. So now the last participant for this session is Mr. B.S.S. Bhagwan. B.S.S. Bhagwan. The title of his paper is Reinterpretation of Myth and History to Reconstruct the Past Reality, Shashi Tharoor's The Great Indian Novel. Are you there?
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning.
The title of my
Can you please on your camera?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah,
I am B.S.S. Bhagwan, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Vikramasingpur University. I am being a visual challenged person. May I request you to permit my student to read my paper?
fine.
Thank you, ma'am. I am giving to my student and he will read my paper.
The title of the paper is Reconstruction of the Past Through the Reinterpretation of Myth and History in Shashi Tharoor's The Great Indian Novel. Many Indian writers drew on mythology and history in their work to elucidate deeper meanings and truths. The myth certainly bolstered the functionality of literary work. Its authenticity is upheld by history. The reader's creative ability must be able to move beyond the historical context of literary work in order to understand the concealed meaning. The urge to realize the hidden facts creates need of rewriting of the epics in terms of contemporary history. The historians interpret the historical events based on their socio-political and cultural backgrounds. The history never reveals complete facts. As a result, many contemporary writers are writing with an informed awareness and aim to redefine their identity, evaluate their present, reposition their past, while asserting images of myth and history in their work. A number of Indian writers in 20th century consciously employed myth and history as a literary device. Rohinton Mysteries, a fine balance, Majnu Kapoor's Difficult Daughters, Kunal Bosu's Opium Clerk, and Amit Ghosh's The Shadow Lines, in which ancient myths and historical events are given a fresh interpretation and a contemporary relevance. They reinterpret an ancient myth from modern audiences by setting it in the present day. Postmodern Indian English fiction frequently employs this mythological technique of evoking the consequences of contemporary events through the lens of an ancient tales. Salman Rushdi's Midnight Children and Shashi Tharoor's The Great Indian Novel were used as a straight point. Colonialism becomes a trans-historical phenomenon. The need to interpret myth and history in order to reconstruct the value of the past reality and develop modern sensibility about the great legends of Indian freedom struggle is essential. Because history is meditated through literature, historical writing does not refer to the actual reality of the past. Literature has a significant impact on how social norms are articulated. Like a book's endless stream of symbols and nuances, society is product of ideologies and situated in relation to culture. It was Tharoor's depictions of the emergency and other historical events that revealed his historical consciousness. Divided perceptions of history is represented as a metaphor for reconstructing past reality. Only literary evidence from the present can be used to verify the truth of the past in history. One can find many literary works in different contexts thanks to the imaginative reinterpretations of Indian history mythology in a culturally mixed environment and innovative literary techniques. As a result of these renowned authors, Indian English writing has taken a new direction. As depicted in Tharoor's the great Indian novel, both Indian history and democracy are reduced to myth. Blueprint of his satirical parody of independent India. There are many myths about Indian independence and democracy that are challenged in 5 novels. He notices that different narratives present a variety of ways of looking at the world. When it comes to reinterpreting modern India's political system using the ancient epics mythology, renowned. This implies that the making of history and the creation of literature are intertwined processes. Fiction and factual information are combined to identify historical figures like Gandhi, Nehru, Jinnah with their mythological counterparts. Tharoor combines the objectivity of factual history with the possibility of fictional probability through the use of such a technique. To emphasize history's transformative nature, he places the two stories side by side and shows how history is always open to new interpretations. As Tharoor reopens the stories of fiction in history, his metaphorical description reaffirms the infinite possibilities of meaning in the open-ended narratives. Myth and history are where we get our real sense of worth and how things should be done. Indian mythology and history are intertwined in great Indian novel, which has been painstakingly recreated. New narrative techniques and political archetypes are part of Tharoor's mockery towards the country's leaders. Shashi Tharoor treated Gandhi and Nehru with utter disrespect. To him, a disloyal leader who was caught up in local politics and had forgotten their moral commitment to ethical norms was unacceptable. Indians continue to fight for their country's independence as he recounts the country's painful colonial history. A large portion of the novel is based on Indian legends and history. Major characters serve as archetypal prefiguration for the binary opposition between tradition and modernity. Mythology as a literary concept, the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata, two of India's most revered religious texts, have had a profound impact on the country's rich cultural heritage. The Mahabharata is an epic tale about the struggle between the Pandava and the Kaurava families, two branches of King Shantanu's heirs, for control the throne of Hastinapur. The Mahabharata's characters have a significant impact on the development of human ideals. For the most part, the epic is about the ruling class in Hastinapur, an ancient state in northern India. In his debut novel, The Great Indian Novel, Shashi Tharoor, a distinguished author of fiction and non-fiction, has reimagined and reshaped the stories of the great epic as an account of the political history of India. The structure of the novel's chapter is based on the structure of Mahabharata. Bhishma from Mahabharata and Gandhi from the Indian independence struggle are reimagined as Gangadatta or Gangaji in the Great Indian Novel. Using an allegory, Tharoor compares the two both in mythology and in recent history, stressing that they both gave up their claim to power, the administration of the nation for the sake of their principles. In Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra and Pandu had a right to the throne of Hastinapur after Bhishma. In Indian political history, Nehru and Subhas were the only contenders for leading the Indian polity following Gandhi. With Nehru as Dhritarashtra and Pandu as Subhash, Tharoor equals Dhritarashtra. As the story progresses, Gangaji's antipathy toward Pandu and preference for Dhritarashtra become more apparent. Dhritarashtra rose to prominence in Indian politics as a result of Gangaji's favoritism towards him, while Pandu suffered greatly as a result of Gandhiji's lack of interest in him, as Bhishma did for Dhritarashtra and his Kaurava sons, even though he was aware of their wicked nature. Gangaji did so for Dhritarashtra in the Mahabharata as well. Also, Gandhiji unreasonable bias in favor of Nehru's is suggested. Mahabharata battle of Kurukshetra was caused by desire for power according to Tharoor. both pre and post-partition. It was a central issue in Indian politics. Many of Shashi Tharoor's characters continue to have an impact on Indian culture today. Gangaji first appeared on the political scene in India and ends with Duryodhana's return to power following the fall of Janta government in the novel. Mahatma Gandhiji was impossible to imitate while he was alive, but impossible to ignore after his death, says Tharoor. Tharoor does not explicitly blame Gangaji for the conflict between Hindus and Muslims, but he does not rule out the possibility. He makes it abundantly clear that political leaders like Karna were driven away from the Kauravas party because of Gangaji's ideas and principles. It was Karna's belief that Mahaguru spiritualism, his recitation of ancient texts, and his use of an ashram all pointed out to an idealized pre-British past that Karna could not accept. As a result, the young men began to distrust the great teacher. As for mass politics, Karna believed that Gangaji relied on appealing to the wrong emotions. In addition, Shashi Tharoor's discussion has a number of well-known and controversial events in Indian history. The novel, he depicts the Dhibigar massacre, a colonial incident that refers to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy in Indian history and focuses on the grotesque brutality of the British. Historians generally believe that Nehru, rather than Maharaja, was the cause of the contract's delay, that as depicted by Tharoor in his fictionalized historical story. According to them, the Maharaja had sent his wazir to Delhi immediately after Pakistani forces attacked Kashmir, requesting that the Indian government provide military support for Kashmir in exchange for Kashmir joining India. Tharoor's novels stand out as an outstanding illustration of British colonialism's persistence in a free and independent India. While the country was exploited by foreigners prior to August 15, 1947, after independence, he was forced to bear the brunt of her own leaders' abuse. As Tharoor's hero, Gangaji, who had shaken the might of the British Empire with non-violence before turning to violence to prevent the partition of subcontinent, he was widely praised. The novel's protagonist, Nathuram Godse, killed him as this reason. For his mistake of removing himself from the political scene during the partition, Shikandi, who is actually Amba in the epic, killed Gangaji by changing his sex and name. Nathuram killed Gandhi because he believed the Mahatma had betrayed him and the nation according to this evidence. Nathu Godse Gandhi assassination was also echoed in Shikandis by Tharoor. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, I congratulate all the participants for presenting their paper. Now I'll be giving my closing comments for this session. So, Dr. B. Thirukumaran, your topic was very fine. The writer you had chosen was again with high literary aspects, but we could have listened some few more aspects from your side. Moving further, I would like to give my comments on the paper The Better Men by Ms. Nirmala. So she has presented it in a very finest way about the psychological interpretations, the sharp characterizations, the internal conflicts, and the traumatic experience and the transformation of the protagonist. Nirmala, ma'am, I would just like to tell that you were good in your presentation, but if you could maintain your speed, like your reading was bit speedy. So a small guideline for you, that further if you're presenting a paper, just try to maintain that, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, little bit haste was there. Just slowly you can also present. Your paper was good. The content was good. Huh?
Okay.
That was appreciable about you. So
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. Joymala, yes, Joymala, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yeah. Yes, Joymala, I would really congratulate you because the way you presented your paper, it was very fine. The way of narration was very good, and the storytelling, the way you covered all the topic very slowly, solemnly, and even the speed was very controlled. Huh? So I really appreciate you for that. She has presented the post-colonial, the village side as well as the urban, very meticulously compared. Then your protagonist, Sapna Sinha, right? Yeah. So again, showing the Western supremacy and the decolonization above the colonial aspect. So the paper was presented very nicely. I congratulate you, Joymala.
Thank
Yeah,
you, ma'am. Thank
and
you so much, ma'am.
yeah, and further, Mr. Bhagwan for his novel, for his paper presentation on the great novel by Shashi Tharoor. So it's one of the wonderful fictional work that has taken up the story from Mahabharata, and it resets and recasts the context of the Indian independence. So the historical consciousness was revealed in a very fine way. Um, I just want to suggest here that I mean, your paper was very good, very scholarly, but a little suggestion from my side that rather than, see, you could read also, but try to present yourself. Hmm? It could create a good impact of your scholarly paper. So this is just simple suggestions. I hope I didn't offend your you people, but uh, again, I really congratulate all the participants for coming forward and presenting your papers. And finally, once I thank the organizers of this today's international conference on language, literature, and linguistics, Dr. Regin, for inviting me here. Yeah, and to chair the session. Thank you, everyone.